from Guyana, the region, and the world. Compiled in the Newstalk Radio Newsroom and powered by DemeraraWaves.com.
Good day with your major newscast. I am Jessica Daw. First with the highlights. A large quantity of marijuana has been found aboard a Panama-registered cargo ship. The People's National Congress Reform has settled the tie for the post of vice chairman of that party. In the region in Barbados, the High Court has ruled that Barbados' general election will go ahead today without about 5,000 COVID-positive persons being allowed to vote. The cause of death of internationally acclaimed actor Sidney Poitier has been revealed. And you have the latest international news coming from the BBC. Do stay tuned for the details.
Advertise with us on Newstalk Radio Guyana 103.1 FM for best coverage on programs on motivation, beauty and health, parenting and relationships, knowing your rights, and a variety of enlightening content, and get value for your money. Call our helpful staff today on 223-1056 or 223-1041 today.
Now for the news in detail. A quantity of marijuana was Wednesday found aboard a Panama-registered cement carrier cargo vessel. The Customs Anti-Narcotics Unit says that so far the captain and other officers have been detained for investigations. Kanu said that several parcels of marijuana, a foreign type known as creepy, with a total weight of more than 16 kilograms or 36 pounds, were found throughout the vessel. The marijuana has a street value of 14 million Guyana dollars. Head of Kanu, James Singh, said that of the 19 foreign nationals, the main suspects, who are the captain, engineer, and other senior officers, have been detained. The others remain aboard the vessel that is moored at the Guyana National Industrial Corporation's wharf, Lombard Street, Georgetown. People's National Congress Reform's PNCR Christopher Jones on Wednesday stepped aside to allow Vince Roy Jordan to become the vice chairman of their party after they tied at the recently held internal party elections. In a statement, Mr. Jones said he was making way for young, fresh, and vibrant leaders like Mr. Jordan to take the PNCR into the future. The two obtained 381 votes for the post of vice chairman. Mr. Jones added that he remained a member of the PNCR's Central Executive Committee, having won the second highest votes. He says he will continue to function as an executive member of the mighty PNCR. Mr. Jones secured 586 votes, making him the second highest vote getter for a seat on the 15-member Central Executive Committee. Mr. Jones said he opted to give away to Mr. Jordan after lengthy discussions with the leadership of the party. Police early Wednesday morning cleared the bridge at Darths Mouth Public Road, Essequibo Coast, of debris. The pre-dawn operation was staged a day after protesters blocked the thoroughfare to protest the decision to charge a policeman with manslaughter of businessman Orrin Boston. The villagers are demanding that the policeman who shot Orrin Boston on September 15 in his bed be charged with murder instead of manslaughter. Constable Sharon Peters was last week charged with manslaughter and was granted $1 million bail pending the hearing and determination of the case. School children from the Pomeroon and other areas west of the bridge were not able to travel to schools in Anna Regina. Mr. Orrin Boston Sr. told Newstalk Radio Guyana that he and other family members, as well as other villagers of Darths Mouth, will continue to press for the police to be charged with murder.
That's very bluntly unfair, because you cannot go into a man's house, shoot a man in his bed, and then at the moment to call it a manslaughter. That's murder. So I'm not pleased with that. That's the reason why I'm okay today. We are here that charge wasn't the charge for that policeman who do that act. We're here about getting the charge removed from there, and that man must get a murder charge.
Orrin Boston Sr., the father of Orrin Boston, the Essequibo Coast businessman, who was shot dead by police last September at his home. The Guyana Court of Appeal on Tuesday granted leave to the government and the People's Progressive Party to appeal a decision to the Caribbean Court of Justice, CCJ. Chancellor of the Judiciary Yonette Cummings made her decision in keeping with CCJ Act, and she also ordered that the applicants or intended appellants lodge $750,000 Guyana dollars with the Supreme Court as security for costs within 90 days from Tuesday. They also have to provide within 90 days a list of documents to be provided in the appeal. The Guyana Court of Appeal also ordered that its decision on December 21 be stayed until the CCJ hears and determines the matter. That decision had been that the Court of Appeal could hear an appeal on why the High Court dismissed an opposition APNU plus AFC election petition. The High Court had refused to hear it on a technicality because the representative of the list of candidates, David Granger, had not signed certain documents within the legal mandated period. Attorney-at-law Roysdale Ford, before Tuesday's decision, failed to convince the court that the substantive appeal should have been first heard by the Guyana Court of Appeal before moving to the CCJ. Attorney-at-law Douglas Mendes, for the PPP's representative of list of candidates, Barra Jagdio, told the Chancellor and other justices of appeal that his client has a right to a CCJ appeal because the matter touches on a constitutional matter, and this court ought to find that this is a matter of great and general public importance. If the petition is ultimately heard, it could see a detailed examination of evidence related to allegations by both APNU plus AFC and the PPP of fraud that could have changed the outcome of the March 2, 2020 general and regional elections. President Irfaan Ali is scheduled to make a working visit to Paramaribo on Thursday to meet with the President of the Republic of Suriname, Chandrika Prasad Santoki, and the President of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro. The Office of the President says the leaders are expected to discuss the formation of an energy corridor, oil and gas and other natural resources opportunities among areas of common interest. On Friday, President Bolsonaro and a team of officials are expected to travel to Georgetown for a one-day official visit with President Ali and his team of ministers. Discussions will center on improving economic relations, energy and food security, telecommunications, agriculture, infrastructure integration, and the development of a deep water harbor in Guyana. Since Guyana offers the shortest and quickest access to the Atlantic for significant parts of northern Brazil, a road connection linked to the deep water port could also serve the interest of both countries. When the two leaders spoke last Monday via teleconference, they discussed enhancing the partial scope agreement between their nations with the hope of bolstering trade. They also deliberated on topics for further engagements at the ministerial levels. Now for the news in the region. Barbadians are continuing to vote in general elections today. The elections are a straight fight between the incumbent Barbados Labour Party, led by Prime Minister Mia Mottley, and the opposition Democratic Labour Party. Voters are taking precautions as they cast their ballots in the midst of the COVID pandemic. We get more in this update from Starcom Network's Ricky Carter.
Steady voting has started here in Christchurch East. Persons are practicing social distancing. It seemed as though a number of persons, of families and so forth, came out together. Each person is being sanitized before they go in. Temperatures are being taken. And from observation, it seems as though the situation is smooth, but I can tell you that persons are turning up. Reporting for Starcom Network, Ricky Carter.
In related news, a High Court judge in Barbados has thrown out an application to postpone today's general elections. The Election and Boundaries Commission says the election must go ahead, but an estimated 5,000 COVID-positive persons who are isolating at home will not be allowed to vote. Starcom Network reports that the High Court judge, Justice Cicely Chase, ruled that the case was filed inadequately and inappropriately filed, and it should have been filed in the election court. Head of the Barbados Sovereignty Party, Philip Catlin, who sought to stop the elections, says he is disappointed in the High Court's decision.
I think the judge did what she had to do. I'm not pleased about it, but I accept her verdict at this point until my attorney and myself have an opportunity to discuss the finer points of it. I think it's a slap in the people's face of Barbados. I think all those people that are disenfranchised, that will not be allowed to vote based on a snap election that is not necessary at a time that is not the best. So saying all of that, we're not backing down. We're going forward.
President of the Barbados Sovereignty Party, Philip Catlin. The Bahamas is actively considering reopening schools to face-to-face learning. As we hear in this report from our News Bahamas, the Health Minister, Dr. Michael Darville, several systems first have to be put in place.
As the country continues to grapple with this fourth wave of COVID-19 infections and an increase in hospitalizations, Health Minister Dr. Michael Darville remains optimistic that face-to-face instruction for public schools can resume. Schools were set to reopen last week, but the resumption of in-person learning was delayed due to the rise in cases.
I remain optimistic. We're looking at the numbers, and we're beginning to see some signs that we may be moving in the right direction. But with that being said, things can change. But I am of the view, like many people throughout the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, that the time has come for us to be able to have some sort of face-to-face, whether it be a hybrid model or direct for our kids.
During his tour of several schools, Prime Minister Davis said government's aim is to use a hybrid model as of this month. Darville said he thinks it's time to move forward with in-person learning, but it's a topic that Cabinet has to discuss.
Many things have to be put in place. One, we have to ensure that free testing is available, because that will be a part of the protocol if we happen to have a child or children who become positive. What are the strategy for testing? Two, we needed to make sure that our teachers are safe. Three, the Ministry of Education made sure that the schools are ready. And four, I need to make sure that our hospital system remains open in the event that we do have kids who may be positive.
That report coming from our News Bahamas. Citing, among other things, a $66 million drop in revenue in the last fiscal year, the Telecommunications Services of Trinidad and Tobago, TSTT, has called in trade unions representing its workers for talks on restructuring. The company blamed its losses on the COVID-19 pandemic and competition from new technologies and suggested these negative effects would persist into the future. TSTT said the increased use of digital apps such as WhatsApp and communications platforms like Zoom has resulted in the steady erosion of traditional voice revenue. The company says revenue from fixed line calls has declined by 50% over the past 10 years, and mobile voice calling has declined by 20% in the same period, according to the annual Telecommunications Authority market reports. The TSTT's revenue in the last fiscal year up to March 31, 2021 fell by $66 million or 18% less than the prior year. It blamed the loss on the pandemic plus economic and technological factors unique to the Trinidad and Tobago market as a result of the global digital revolution in the telecommunications industry. Chief Executive Officer of TSTT, Lisa Agard, declined to say if the company's statement alluded to job losses and highlighted that it would not be prudent to comment on the outcome of the consultations until it has concluded. Finance experts in the British Virgin Islands are estimating that new revenue streams like gaming will help the government realize budgetary plans. During the Standing Finance Committee deliberations, policy analyst Dr. Don Alexander Joseph, Ministry of Finance, advised that approximately $5.7 billion was estimated for gaming in 2022. Gaming and gambling were made legal in the territory under the Gaming and Betting Control Act 2020, which commenced on July 9, 2021 and will further amend in October 2021. Rather, it was further amended in October 2021. Acting Financial Secretary Jeremiah Frett laid out the revenue projection process for the SFC. He noted that of the key areas of revenue in which they hope to collect in 2022, the majority will continue to come from the financial services industry, given the industry continued to perform above the estimate provided. He stated that the ministry often took a conservative approach to determine the revenue projection figures. The acting FS advised that they also looked at existing and other revenue initiatives that would be taken into consideration and anticipate there would be progress and an increase in revenue in the cruise and yachting industries and tourism in general. He said they were optimistic that there would be some increases in revenue in certain categories. And lastly, in the region, Sidney Poitier cause of death has been released less than 2 weeks after the groundbreaking actor's death. The legendary entertainer, who was the first black man to win the Academy Award for Best Actor, died from a combination of heart failure, Alzheimer's dementia, and prostate cancer. This is according to a death certificate obtained by TMZ on Tuesday. He was 94. The death was reported to the coroner's office, but a biopsy and autopsy were not performed, the record stated. He died at home in Beverly Hills on January 6. The Bahamian-born icon's death was first announced by Bahamas Minister of Foreign Affairs Fred Mitchell. Sidney was diagnosed with prostate cancer at the age of 66 in 1993, but was able to beat the disease after successfully undergoing surgery. His struggles with Alzheimer's dementia were not as publicly known. Here now is your international news coming from the BBC.
Hello, I'm Chris Barrow with the BBC News. Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson has come under sustained attack in Parliament over his handling of allegations that parties at his residence broke COVID rules. A raucous session began with one of his MPs defecting to the opposition Labour Party and ended with another calling on him to resign. Mr Johnson mounted a passionate defence of his record. Here's our political correspondent Rob Watson.
Anyone who thought that Boris Johnson was going to curl up in a corner or resign, absolutely not. It was the classic turning defence into attack, this sort of robust defence of his, as he would see it, his government's handling of COVID, the vaccine, and essentially trying to make that case to Conservative MPs. Look, I know things look bad now, right, but this was the past. Hold your nerve, stick with me, I could be a winner again. At this point, because we're such a long way from an election, and it's worth reminding everyone, the people who've got the power to decide whether Boris Johnson stays or goes are the other 359 Conservative MPs.
The US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, who's visiting Ukraine, says there'll be relentless diplomatic efforts to prevent a Russian invasion of the country. Mr Blinken said the US was boosting its defence aid for Ukraine. James Waterhouse reports from Kiev.
Antony Blinken is the latest of a number of senior Western politicians to arrive here in Ukraine this week. Ahead of his meeting with President Zelensky, he told reporters America is committed to Ukraine's sovereignty and international integrity. America's $200 million security package will be welcomed, along with the UK's recent delivery of short-range anti-tank missiles. But with both NATO and the US ruling out troops being deployed, what ministers here really want is Western governments to announce new and immediate sanctions to put Russia off an invasion.
A Belgian court has sentenced a Vietnamese man to 15 years in jail after ruling he was the ringleader in the trafficking of 39 migrants found dead in a lorry in the UK. Vo Van Hong was found guilty of having led a people trafficking operation based in Belgium. The victims, all Vietnamese, were discovered in 2019. Luc Arnaud, a lawyer for groups helping the victims of human trafficking, said today's verdict was important.
The decision is very clear, very logical, and it's a clear message that any kind of abuse of the misery of somebody else who is looking for a better life and a better world, that this cannot be tolerated.
A militant leader has been jailed for 15 years in Indonesia for his role in the 2002 Bali bombings, which killed 200 people. Aris Sumarsono, also known as Zulkarnain, was a former military commander of Jemaah Islamiyah, a Southeast Asian jihadist network linked to Al-Qaeda. This is the latest world news from the BBC. Kazakhstan says the withdrawal of Russian-led forces sent to quell this month's unrest has been completed and the state of emergency has been lifted. The former Soviet country has been embroiled in clashes that were sparked during rallies against fuel price rises. More than 200 people were killed during the violence. More than 100 multi-millionaires have issued a rare plea to leaders attending the virtual World Economic Forum's Davos meeting, asking for the rich to be forced to pay more tax. Jack Graysmark reports.
The group, which calls itself the Patriotic Millionaires and includes the Disney heiress Abigail Disney and venture capitalist Nick Hanur, said that few, if any of us, can honestly say that we pay our fair share in taxes. The group proposed a progressive wealth tax starting at 2% for those with more than $5 million in wealth, rising to 5% for billionaires, which could raise over $2.5 trillion. The letter has been released as the virtual Davos World Economic Forum takes place against the backdrop of a pandemic where the world's 10 richest men have seen their collective wealth double to $1.5 trillion.
US telecoms companies say a partial delay in activating their 5G networks across North America announced on Tuesday is temporary, while airlines concerned about signal interference are reassured. Several companies, including British Airways, Air India and Emirates Airlines, cancelled flights to some US cities after raising concerns about possible interference with aircraft radio altimeters, which can operate at the same frequencies as 5G. There's been an angry reaction in Hong Kong to a decision by the authorities to cull 2,000 hamsters over fears they're spreading COVID. An online petition calling for it to be reversed has received thousands of signatures. The cull was ordered after a number of hamsters and an employee from a pet shop in Hong Kong tested positive for COVID. BBC News.
And that was your international news from the BBC. Here now is a recap of the highlights. A large quantity of marijuana has been found aboard a Panama-registered cargo ship. The People's National Congress Reform has settled the tie for the post of vice chairman of that party. In the region in Barbados, the High Court has ruled that the Barbados' general election will go ahead today without about 5,000 COVID-positive persons being allowed to vote. The cause of death of internationally acclaimed actor Sidney Poitier has been revealed. And you had your latest international news coming from the BBC. And that was your major newscast. I am Jessica Daw.
This has been the news compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/demwaves.